Alright guys, let's go for another reaction video. So are you an Airbnb customer? You know what I'm talking about, right? If you didn't just arrive from Mars yesterday, you're an Airbnb customer. Or at least you know what Airbnb is, right? So let's talk about Airbnb and its impacts on cities. Talk about Airbnb and its impacts on cities. We're going to react to a channel we've never reacted to before. Edson Castro. Do you know him? I saw the guy here, and I recognized him because I think I've seen a clip of Gaiola Fato on one of his podcasts. And the chat already told me that he had a podcast called Manual do Homo Moderno, Manual for the Modern Man. That's right, chat? So that's it. Anyway, I don't know the guy. I don't know his affiliation. I don't have any opinion about him. I hope he's a nice guy, right? Let's start from the principle of good faith and see what he's saying. Without further ado, let's get to the video.
You're all aware of the controversy Airbnb has caused around the world and how Airbnb is probably one of the major factors preventing a portion of Generation Z from having homes in the coming years.
This is happening. It's unbelievable that only I'm seeing it. I don't know if you know, but one of the biggest problems in the modern world is housing. Living is expensive. Literally, housing has become a luxury. Having a 3-bedroom apartment is like, oh my God, it's the most incredible thing in the world. And this is very strong in Europe. I live in Lisbon, which for those who don't know, is one of the most housing-prone cities. The minimum wage in Portugal is 840 euro. A 2 or 3-bedroom apartment in Lisbon costs around 10,000 euros if you're being generous. Thank God I managed to get an exception. So thank you very much to God for blessing me. But why did the housing crisis occur? There are several factors actually, right? But one of the main things is the creation of accommodations for tourists. Many Airbnbs have been created in these cities, not only in Lisbon, but also in Rome, New York, so much so that there are several cities like Manhattan where they are banning Airbnb.
I went to New York and there's no Airbnb in Manhattan. There's no Airbnb at most in Brooklyn, which is outside, because Manhattan is an island, right? And Brooklyn is all around. There's no Airbnb. They banned it. Paris was banned too, if I'm not mistaken. There were protests in Paris, people threw French toast, set fire to everything in the streets, right? But like several cities around the world are being torn apart because of Airbnb, okay?
And this happened a few years ago, this wave, this Airbnb craze. And I'm seeing it happening now in Sao Paulo. There were quite a few before, but now people are making a business out of it. Housing is a business, it already was before, with large construction companies, but now it's a business where someone, for example, with an income like mine, could buy a house and replace it with a tiny studio apartment in Sao Paulo. What's the problem with that? It literally creates a source of income from something that should be a right. And we see people accumulating business after business, right? Accumulating properties and houses while there are people without a place to live. And my loves. And damn, I'm so upset that nobody is seeing that this creates a huge bubble. We have people now who own like 6 or 7 25-meter square studio apartments near the subway in São Paulo. It's much harder to feel this impact in São Paulo because it's a very large city that's growing a lot, right? Like São Paulo goes all the way to Mogia. There are so many options for where to live. But seeing what happened in Europe a few years ago, the result of that now, I wonder if this bubble could also exist in São Paulo. So for example, there are many places in Itaim Bibi, for instance, which is a super corporate area, where many apartments are for 1 or 2 days stay. And in some smaller cities like Lisbon, and that's why the crisis is so severe, you don't have housing options because the available housing is being rented out to tourists. And okay.
I was letting her talk quite a bit, okay, folks? Because she's telling a story like this, and it's good to hear this kind of account, okay? It seems this isn't a video of Edson. He does reactions. Okay, so we're hearing a fake, right? Because a reaction to a reaction is fake. But the thing is, okay, guys, there's a fundamental issue here that I think is worth talking about a little, which is the process of gentrification, which is the very issue of housing, right, as a target of the logic of capital. So what has always happened, okay, since the logic of capital, right, it's an uninterrupted process, okay? That's why we have all those memes. Oh, because in my grandfather's time it was easier to get a house now because, well, what happens, okay? Urban centers, right? Because capitalism was, among other things, a great process of urbanization of society. So urban centers, right, began to concentrate the largest population contingents, and then And then you'll have an explosion in the price of real estate rents and land in those places. So there's a logic there to begin our conversation, which is tendentially, okay, there are issues in cases of ascension, but tendentially, the more central the area, the larger the city, the greater the number of jobs, and the concentration of capital, the more expensive housing is. And this is a trend that has been happening, as I said, since capitalism existed. Actually, even before, but let's focus here. Since capitalism existed, so you have two processes. One scenario is where it's becoming increasingly expensive and inaccessible to the working class, while on the other hand, those who accumulate capital, that is, the bourgeoisie, the ruling class, will realize that they can allocate their capital to this type of property. Why? First, to protect capital, right? Because buying a property, a plot of land, is a way to protect capital. Because the real estate market tends to only appreciate. For a house or a plot of land to depreciate, you have to have an exceptional case. I don't know, the city sank. I don't know, the factories were taken away from that city for some reason or another. Something happened. Jobs disappeared. The city started to shrink. That's not normal. That's not normal, okay? The normal thing is appreciation. Even in places where the population is already decreasing, the normal thing is appreciation. This appreciation can be faster or slower. So the capitalist allocates part of their capital to real estate as a way to protect their capital. Why? Because you don't want to be at the mercy of the markets. So investing in real estate is like investing in gold. You want some security beyond the easy money, beyond systemic risk. So you invest in real estate. And since real estate tends to appreciate, you not only protect your assets, but you also ensure that you won't suffer losses due to inflation. For example, since your property usually appreciates above inflation. So this has always been a process in capitalism where, some capitalists start accumulating real estate and then they work with rentals, they work with developers, with construction companies. They use this as an arm of capital for the expansion of capital. Airbnb was born from the development of a certain technology. That is, it's an idea similar to the idea of Uber, for example, right? Of course, with due proportions and specificities. Are you understanding what I'm saying? There's a platform that simply acts as an intermediary, between someone who owns a property and someone who wants to rent one, who wants a place to stay. So this exacerbates the problem, which is already a problem of capitalism, where property prices rise above inflation. And you have another reality of capitalism, which is the permanent impoverishment of the working class. So on the one hand, workers earn less. On the other hand, property becomes more expensive. And on top of that, now, since there's always a lot of pressure on employment, on income, workers, small bourgeois, who sometimes own property, something from the family, an inheritance, something that isn't the product of capital accumulation. This can often also be used as a source of income through a platform like AIRbnb. You see? So there's that. Another thing, as this has become a logic, capitalists themselves are also starting to show even more interest in these businesses. So you're going to start having a dispute between factions of the ruling class, the traditional capitalists. In the real estate sector, construction companies, corporations, with other capitalists entering the business, buying properties from people who have little money to use for Airbnb. In other words, a process is aggravated in several ways. First, the dispute between capitalists over properties drives up property prices, making it difficult for the working class to acquire their own home. Those who try to make ends meet by renting out a family home who are not capitalists will also be pressured into this market. And on top of that, you'll have legal disputes between factions of the bourgeoisie, including attempts to limit the scope and actions of Airbnb. So folks, what's the result of all this? The result we're seeing is that it's becoming increasingly difficult to dream of owning a home, which has always been a distant dream for the working class. Today, it's practically impossible, folks. Today, it's practically impossible, okay? Well, financing isn't available. It's not enough. The interest rates are too high. The repayment period doesn't fit within the salary. The prices are exorbitant. And in short, you have to go to increasingly inhospitable, distant places to even access to land, to a property. And even when you can have that possibility, it's still completely outside your reality where you can't even support yourself in your own job.
The case of Sao Paulo for people to come and do business, right? For those who are going to be tourists in Sao Paulo. Excuse me.
And why is this bad?
Because it creates a gigantic bubble. People stop having options for things to rent. Because for the person who owns that place, it's much more beneficial to rent it on Airbnb for our $300 or our $400 a day than to have a 30-day rental reserved for our $1,500 or $2,000 or even our $3,000 because, well, Sao Paulo is very expensive. But you understand how bad this is for cities. Individual rentals are much better. I'm not criticizing those who rent individually. Like, if someone is getting the best deal, if they can rent for our $5,000, there's really no rational reason why they would want to rent to a single person for our $2,000. But for cities, this is very detrimental. Here in Lisbon, now I live in an area that is a bit more, actually much more residential. But before I lived in Santa Polónia, which is in Fama, which for those who have been to Lisbon is where you find those old, super traditional Portuguese streets. Okay, folks, to give you a bit of an idea, I had to have someone sign my civil union agreement, and I needed Portuguese neighbors, and I didn't have any, because there aren't any Portuguese people who can afford the rent for that place, you know? And most of the people who are there are entry level because it's Airbnb. And that's it, it's complex because, for example, I also stay in Airbnbs when I go to Barcelona, when I go to it.
Oh, darling. Oh, darling. Oh, it's only a problem when it affects you, man. I was here holding hands. Oh man, are you crazy?
But I'm not going to criticize her, Edson Castro. You know why? Because the worker has a low income, so they have no option but to choose the cheapest option, right? So it's logical to understand that Airbnb adds fuel to the fire that makes life harder for the worker by increasing the cost of housing. Doesn't mean I won't resort to that tactic when I need to, precisely because my income is low. It's the same as telling a poor person, look, you don't eat sausage, okay? Look, you don't eat processed food. When sausage food is the cheapest thing to eat. So I think it's not right to criticize her. I think her criticism is fair. She's just pointing something out. It's a fact, right, guys? The expansion of the Airbnb business contributes to the increase in the price of real estate worldwide. And what is difficult is becoming impossible. Okay? Basically, that's it. Okay? So, it raises the price of rents, generates disputes between factions of the bourgeoisie, and the worker has to pay the bill. The worker will defend themselves by trying to pay as little as possible, and if they have to resort to BMI, they will resort
To, Greece or anywhere else. Like, it's legal. But do you understand how the lack of public policy, especially in a city that doesn't care, that grows haphazardly, which is the city where I was born, is very complicated. Because this can become, and I'm noticing that it is becoming, a very strong business niche, very, very strong indeed. People are really seeing real estate as a form of retirement, Of
course means that some cities will have much more demand than others, right? There are large business centers. Tourist cities suffer more than others at the hands of this type of practice. It's normal.
Individually great, all good for you, but collectively it's very complicated.
We have to end Airbnb, but when I travel, no, right? I mentioned the example in New York because it was crazy, because in New York, you walk around with these stickers, right? And in Paris, there was also this Airbnb thing. Like, Airbnb, go to hell Airbnb. Like, people are very pissed off with Airbnb. And this is something I started researching whenever I travel, whenever I see videos talking about it. I always do research to see which cities are booming with Airbnb and which aren't, right? And what happens? She's very accurate in what she's saying, which is really a gigantic phenomenon, which is the following. You have neighborhoods that are more upscale, right? So what are you going to do? People will want to live there more. Neighborhoods that are closer to tourist attractions, neighborhoods that are closer to workplaces, neighborhoods that are more sought after, right? The person who will live in that neighborhood will probably want to live in that neighborhood, will want to be able to stay in that neighborhood. So let's talk about Ibirapuera, Moema, Itaim, Pinheiros, Jardins, which are very good neighborhoods here in São Paulo, right? Okay. You know that it's a neighborhood where there will be a flow.
Bourgeois people, right? Bourgeois neighborhoods, right? Generally, bourgeois people like to be neighbors with other bourgeois people, okay? Why? Because different social classes don't occupy the same space, unless one is serving the other. In this case, the working class serving the dominant class. So that's why you'll have the formation of these upscale neighborhoods, okay? Because they like to be neighbors with each other because they occupy the same spaces, right? And the apex of this logic is the logic of the gated community, right? But some neighborhoods, I don't know, like Jardins in São Paulo, also have a bit of this logic, right? But it's the logic of Alphaville, okay?
A very large people, so people will always want to be there. So look what happens. You can charge someone $8 in rent per month. You can charge $50 per day, right? With $150 a day, you make a lot of money, right? And then you say, but that's not right. It's wrong. Okay, fine. So let's do this. Let's make the rent for that space equivalent to 30 days on Airbnb. Then let's increase the rental price to be competitive with Airbnb. The problem is Airbnb. So instead of matching Airbnb's rental price, let's compare the rent to Airbnb's to increase profits, okay? And what happens? And then you'll understand the magnitude of the mess that's happening, okay? This makes renting certain places much more expensive. Massive. Of course. That's it, you understand? Because Airbnb is adding fuel to the fire precisely because of this. So real estate speculation is already adding fuel to the fire, right? Capitalists buying and piling up properties they don't even need that income from, but they put them there anyway. Why? Because that way, they keep the real estate market heated and they can maintain their business when that's what it is. Airbnb aggravates this situation precisely because of what I'm saying. If I can rent by the day, and I'm going to make a certain amount to rent by the month, I'll have to make at least something similar to what I can rent by the day, which is what screws over the worker who lives in the city. Because for someone who's just passing through, whether for tourism or work, Airbnb will be a godsend. Because it's much cheaper than a hotel, for example, right? On average, it's much cheaper than a hotel. Now, someone who moves to the city and needs to live there will have to face an unaffordable rent. And when prices in big cities rise significantly for properties for rents, this also contaminates the price of properties in smaller cities in a cascading effect. Pushes people to the outskirts of the city, further and further away. In Paris, there was a huge problem with university housing. Students couldn't find a place to live to study in Paris. So this guy was studying in Paris, but he had nowhere to live because Airbnb took over people's rentals and people started kicking students out to live off Airbnb because it's a tourist city, a city where there are always people wanting to stay. So this guy knew he could put his place up. And what he did was he didn't price it based on the price of a hotel, you know? How much does a hotel cost in Paris? Oh, 1,000 euros a night. Let's guess. And then what do? Okay, so what am I going to do? 800 euros a night at the B&B, 700 euros a night at the RPNB. And then the rent is priced according to the hotel rate, you know. And it's becoming a crazy situation. It becomes a crazy situation because it creates a bubble and pushes people around. And then what do you have? People increasingly far from the center or far from the places they need to go, right? Usually this
is the gentrification process, and this always happens, okay? Take the cities in the interior of Brazil, where I live, is a classic example of this. Whoever arrived here in the city 80 or 90 years ago didn't even pay for the land. Right? A time when they were still occupying this area and opening the first subdivisions. Basically you put up a fence and said it's mine, right? Today, if you want a plot of land in the center, even the worst kind, it will cost 1, 2, or 3 million reais, and this isn't a city of 50,000 inhabitants. What happens? As this increases in value, Over the years, the city grows and transforms into a commercial center. This increases in value. The families who arrive there first sell that land in the center, which before was just the family's house. A family that doesn't have much money, but soon that house is worth $2 million, right? The family sells, moves further from the center, and then some capitalist buys it, it's renovated, it becomes a commercial property because it's in the city center, and the family moves further away. You can't even buy further from the center anymore because it's too expensive. Then you go to the periphery, and you start going to places that shouldn't be inhabited in Costa Rica, Barranca, risk areas. That's what happens. People go to live in risk areas because they want to, right? Right? Because capital takes over the best areas and people are pushed further and further to the periphery, to risk areas. Then comes the heavy rain, the embankment collapses. Then people look, wow, but why did they choose to live there? Of course, the person chose to live on the embankment. No, folks, housing is one of the most difficult things in our time.
Tourist areas are where there are more tourists and where there are more people working. So you look at Times Square. Man, Times Square is a bubble of people. It's impressive how many people are there. How many shops, services, restaurants, people need to go to Times Square. The further people are from Times Square, the longer it takes them to get to work. The worse the quality of life for these people. But you burden public transportation services. You need to have public transportation that is accessible, right? And this capillarity to where you are going to throw people, right? You're going to throw people there, right? And then we need to talk about this, right? Why is it difficult to find a worker? Why is my worker so angry? So angry. Why does the employee come to work looking miserable? Because I'm angry. And then you look in here, and everyone's saying it's fair because people are saying things like, oh, it's fair, man. It's all good, man. Oh, good, man. I own a property. Oh, I really want to do that. Oh, I would do that. Okay. But you understand, people, that you're nothing. You're nothing, okay? You're a small fish. What happens? Sharks, which are quick, saw this long before we did. The shark looked and said, hey, that's the shark over there, folks. Folks, look, you have to be really, really stupid to think that real estate isn't an investment, okay? You fell for the rich cousin's line of don't buy, rent. Look, buying real estate is terrible. Don't.
Fall for that, for God's sake. Don't fall for that. Don't fall for that. Don't fall for that. That talk about not buying real estate might be valid. When you're talking about high-end real estate, guys, oh, I'm going to buy a mansion for $3 million. I don't know, not even a mansion, right? A mansion would be $13 million nowadays, right? I'm going to buy a property for $5 million, $10 million, $4 million. Maybe it's not worth it, right? How much is the rent for that? How much are you going to earn with that invested money? But that's not for us, folks. Look, even in those cases, I don't think it's worth it, but maybe we have to do the math. Each case is different, and etc. Maybe we'll find some argument along those lines. But for ordinary mortals, it doesn't apply. Okay, folks? Because we're not talking about furniture of that standard. We're talking about the kind of property someone lives in, where investing the money won't cover the rent of that type of property. So logically, it's preferable to save up, get a mortgage, right? Even if the mortgage payment is a little higher than the rent, because one day the mortgage will end, but the rent won't. So don't fall for that line, okay? Please.
How disgusting to buy a property. Rent to don't buy. The worst thing in the world. A guy with 500 properties, don't buy. Rent. All his friends with lots of properties, don't buy. Rent. You have to be really stupid to fall for that line, right? Because the big shot looked and said, so you mean I can buy $1 million here, 5 studios, 5 apartments, and put them all up for Airbnb? There are places in Sao Paulo that you go to, man. A lot of people are doing this. Capitalists entering this market, and that's where the fights start. When they clash with the interests of other capitalists who are already exploiting this market, not through Airbnb. And then they go there with their lobby. That's why some places are banning Airbnb. It's a product of this dispute, okay? Product of this dispute, that's crazy. There are entire buildings of Airbnb. No, if not entire buildings, it's almost entire buildings of Airbnb. You go, there are several floors of Airbnb, man. Several.
Yes, because the bourgeois arrive and buy 20, 40 apartments at once, okay? It's that we have no idea of the power of capital.
They even have room service. Can you understand a building with room service with a coffee shop in the room that delivers things to the room? This is crazy because these guys understood it was a business model, and now they're starting to take a bunch of buildings that are designed for affordable housing, that are meant to be more accessible, and they are. They're selling everything. And they're already launching properties.
It's a lot. I think 1 million buys a studio apartment, right? That's the price of real estate these days, but okay. I think they not only sell everything, but
Then with everything sold to the sharks, the agribusiness guys, they have nowhere else to spend their money. They're buying all kinds of buildings. It's because it becomes an easy business model. You create an easy management company, right? You put a manager, you put 2 or 3 workers there to clean the Airbnbs and stuff. Look, there's one on Palista Avenue that has 15 floors. And then you put the people there and you put them to work. What does this do? It just throws things around. Why do people think they have to live in Sao Paulo or rather live a little further from the big city center? Seriously, Leo, that's a bit of a dumb question. Look, where are the job opportunities? Look, we're talking about a city with 20 million inhabitants. Do you think people have jobs? For crying out loud. What's the problem with living outside the city center, Lila? Come on, Lilaire. No question is good, but Lilaire's question bothered me a bit. You have job opportunities in Barini, Faria Lima, Paulista, where the working man goes to work. And what's the problem with living in a backwater town that doesn't have proper trains, that doesn't have a subway, where it takes you two hours to get to a crowded, completely unsuitable train car?
yeah, that's a reality for the Brazilian worker. Since the housing he can afford is 3 hours away from his work, it's not enough that he spends 8, 10, 12 hours at work. He spends another 6 hours commuting back. His life is ruined, okay? Then people don't understand why the opposition to the 6-day on, 1-day off work schedule is so strong. The worker is exhausted, people. The worker is worn out, skinned alive, okay? Okay. And then they're demanding even more work from the worker, as if the worker's exhaustion is his own fault. Okay?
Rain and heat, when it doesn't break down, you have to wake up at 5 in the morning. 5 in the morning, the subway's packed in Sao Paulo. What's the problem, right, with living far from the center, Liraire? But you need to think before you ask questions, damn it. You're gonna stop for a minute? Put your hand on your conscience, okay? To put it in your conscience to say, hey, if I live in Maua and work in Largo 13, what's the worst that can happen to me, right? Damn, dude. It's something we need to understand, man. It's about quality of life. And this is the Lilare Protocol master plan thing. No. And Sao Paulo also doesn't have traffic, right? Buy a car, right? Buy a motorcycle, there are almost no accidents, right? Because I think that maybe for those who aren't in Sao Paulo, this could be, I don't know, a possibility to say, man, it's just a matter of getting in the car and going, right? Man, here because I live in, America, I work in Campinas, it's a maximum of 1 hour, right? So, it's something you need to understand. You've never paid for Blue Zone parking, right? And, this is something that's happening in all the major centers, right? That's what I was talking about. We were talking about Airbnb, my friend, Rio de Janeiro, forget it, okay? And Rio de Janeiro, forget it. Because, well, Sao Paulo still has the privilege of not being a tourist destination, okay? Sao Paulo isn't a
tourist destination, but it's a business center that generates a lot of Airbnb, a lot, right? Rio is also a business center, right? Smaller than Sao Paulo, but it's also a very large tourist city. I think that's where the two things come together.
Tourist. Now think about Copacabana, think about Leblon, think about it, there are some less nice neighborhoods, less Botafogo, Laranjeiras, less, think about that little place there. And exactly where? Where will there be 500 restaurants? Where will there be shopping malls? Where will there be stores? Where will there be bars? Where will there be nightclubs? Where will there be business opportunities? But you'll never live there. You'll be pushed to other parts of the city. In Rio de Janeiro, which is a terrible city, the public transportation is a joke, okay? It's a joke, the public transportation, Rio. And you, my friend, are going to have to suffer to get through it. And that's what it is. This is a phenomenon of big cities, man. Airbnb destroys the big city. It's something that's impressive, isn't it? Because it creates a bubble. It creates it's
logical that it should be regulated, okay? As a reformist measure, I would suggest regulating Airbnb. The issue is that whenever we've seen attempts at regulation, they don't come from a popular initiative. They come from the dispute between Airbnb and the capitalist groups that Airbnb ends up affecting, okay? The hotel sector and even the, guest houses, traditional sectors of the economy, the real estate sector. So from this dispute, regulations are being born. None of these regulations are intended to serve the working class, okay? I think that if we could gather the political capital to exert pressure, we could achieve better regulation, okay? But I see that the issue of rents, the issue of housing, is a central issue of capitalism, okay, where we have to tackle this problem head on in a more direct way, okay? Okay? For example, it would be much better to gather political capital to guarantee the social function of property, not to regulate Airbnb. That's not the focus. It shouldn't be, although it could be a possible palliative measure. But we have to move towards social housing, sato saku. Expropriations. Because today it's the poor who lose their homes and have them auctioned off, while the rich who speculate in the real estate sector don't lose their homes to auction. So we have to create mechanisms to defend workers expropriating the capitalists who speculate in this sector, making it impossible for workers to have a place to live.
A way that makes it difficult for people to get to work, increases prices, and worsens the quality of life for workers, okay? You think that, like this, 6 for 1 is difficult, and then it keeps getting more and more interesting. It keeps pushing you further and further away, 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 further away. And it's such a crazy thing, folks. I live in a city of 50,000 inhabitants, which isn't even a tourist area or a business center or anything like that. I just had to rent a property, okay? And so I know the trouble I went through because, for example, what's happening here, okay? Money laundering. The entire North Coast is the target of a money laundering scheme involving real estate. The guys buy properties here to launder money and then leave the properties sitting idle and idle. It's crazy, folks. Okay? For example, there wasn't a property to rent in my city that met my needs, In other words, a family that has, I have my dogs, my cats, needed a yard, something, and there wasn't one. You had houses for sale, and a lot of closed houses that weren't even for sale at rent, and nobody was living there. They're just for speculation, you know? Just to increase the value of certain areas. Here on the coast, there's a craze for condominiums. Every day there's a new condominium. Each plot in one of these condominiums is 15.5 million, 2.5 million. They all sell very quickly. You go there and see nobody lives inside. They sell like crazy. Nobody lives there, you know? I wanted to understand. Who is buying, you know? So that there's such a high demand, the prices are so crazy because even Airbnb doesn't have people here, which, like I said, is a city that isn't touristy, it's nothing, you know? So it's not an Airbnb problem. I think Airbnb aggravates the problem, but it's not an Airbnb problem, okay? It keeps pushing you further and further away, making it harder and harder to get where you need to be, more costly for you to earn little, for you to work like a slave. And what's the problem with Airbnb? And that's the invisible hand of the market, self-regulating, right? It's expensive to buy, so put it up for sale and make it ridiculously expensive, right? Because the guys are going to try to win. And so it's not that you're competing. That's the point you're going to understand. It's not that we're in this chat, us among ourselves, right? Trying to compete amongst ourselves. Who buys property? Who doesn't have it? And so on. We're talking about a guy who's a billionaire in agribusiness. 50, 60, 100 million. He buys a whole bunch of apartments at once. The city hall is doing a job there. The city hall. And look, and there you go. Just so you're all pissed off, okay? Are you ready to be pissed off? Why are you saying, hey, but then whoever has money gets to regulate? No. You're the one who's going to pay for it. You know why? Look. The city of São Paulo spent billions of reais on retrofitting buildings in downtown São Paulo. So the question is, who paid the billions of reais that the city gave to real estate companies and construction companies to retrofit buildings in downtown São Paulo? It was your taxes, it was your money. You paid. Who's going to be able to buy that building, that apartment, that space that you paid for? You paid with your taxes. It won't be you. So with your taxes, you paid the city, which took your money, did a retrofit. What is a retrofit? You take an old abandoned building, they fix it up completely, right? And put it up for sale again. So from the buildings that are abandoned, neglected, etc., you give them, like, it's not a new building, but an old building that was redone, right? So the idea behind retrofit is that some people are going to revitalize the city center. Yeah, right, okay. Yes, it is. But the question again is, who paid for a billionaire construction company to go there, and who's going to buy it? It's not going to be you.
Okay, folks. Okay. It's so-so. I guess. I thought it was so-so. I thought it would be a bit more entertaining, but oh well, right? Right? Not every holiday is perfect. We've reached the end, so give us some support, okay? Leave a like, comment here about your experience with Airbnb on this app, this platform that connects people who want to earn some money with their property, with people who want to rent out a stay by the day or for a single day. Share your experience. What do you think? Leave a like, and if you can, help with the maintenance of our programming. Thanks, everyone. That's it for today. Bye-bye, and see you next time.